Sleep Token sucks. That's pretty much a lot of the comments that I see anytime I post anything related to Sleep Token. And I find it kind of interesting why they're getting so much hate, because since 2019, I've been making videos on Sleep Token, and it's been absolutely wild to say the least to watch this underground UK band blow up into this huge phenomenon that they are today. And I'm not here to talk about the music as much, but instead talk about this other occurrence that's happening, and that's the hate that the band is getting.
I hate them so much!
Now, every artist, public figure has some sort of hate, but I find something kind of ironic about the amount of hate that Sleep Token is getting, especially from the metal scene. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, right? But I want to understand the deep-rooted issue with metalheads when bands find mainstream success, because Sleep Token's not the first band to experience this, and they won't be the last, but with their incredibly fast growth, I feel like the hate's even more exponential. Sleep Token were once an underrated band. I discovered Sleep Token back on June 4th, 2018, when the reaction channel Truant made a video for their song Jaws.
What the fuck is up, everyone? Hello. Welcome.
Jaws literally gave me chills the first time I heard it. I had to go share it with friends because of how much I loved this song and this new band that I discovered through Truant. And people now know that Truant stopped making reaction videos, and it kind of helped fuel my fire to start my own channel. And here I am 6 years later, still making videos. And in 2019, I had to go share my followers a song from Sleep Token, and that was my video for Nazareth.
Yeah, on today's video we are going to be reacting and reviewing to a special band, and so without further ado, this is Sleep Token Nazareth.
There was a couple of comments that were discovering the band, but it wasn't until later that year that Sleep Token started dropping singles off of Sundowning, and I made a video for The Night Does Not Belong to God, but it got copyright blocked. Pain in the ass when it comes to reaction content, but the song The Offering dropped, and I really needed to make a video for that, so I did some editing magic and worked my way around it, and I was able to upload it. And a lot of people discovered Sleep Token through that reaction video. A lot of my followers.
Sleep Token, The Offering.
I was also the first person to drop a video off of Sundowning too at that point, which I thought was cool. But a lot of the comments were positive discovering this band. But one of my favorite comments is seeing how Sleep Token were considered underrated. People have used the word underrated to describe Sleep Token, including the homie Drew Fortune.
And from like a growing the channel perspective, these guys are by no means the best band to be covering, because you know they're a little bit more underground. The Offering happens to be their most popular song based on views on YouTube, but
there's no denying that they were building like a large following in the alternative space. So in 2023, when they started the year by dropping off Chokehold and then a day later, The Summoning, the band literally had the scene by a chokehold. Most knew the band were special, unique, although not everyone loved them, obviously. Music is subjective, but no one expected the band, or even the band themselves, to expect that The Summoning went as viral as it did, where Sleep Token is now the arena selling, massive cult following, superstardom band that they are today. And again, it's been wild to see their growth since the beginning of their career. So what's the point of this Sleep Token history lesson? Is it merely to explain that Sleep Token were once an underrated band? Well, yeah, but they were writing music that was just different. It was a bit slower paced, it was melodramatic, but also was progressive. Not as progressive as bands like Dream Theater or Between the Bear and Me, but they had prog elements. Because goddamn, how many times do you hear a 6-minute song with breakdowns, guitar solos, the chorus only appearing twice, an interlude that's almost 2 minutes before it gets into this whole different genre of funk, but they use the same lyrics as the intro, and it goes absolutely viral? In my 6 years of making content, that was a first. But I know some people will disagree with the amount of praise that I'm giving Sleep Token, so let's understand their viewpoint and go through some reasons why some metalheads have an issue with Sleep Token's popularity. The Gent Imagine Dragons. I swear, these Imagine Dragon jabs are as basic as the music that they think Sleep Token is. But before moving on, I will be talking about metal and metalheads a lot here, and I understand Sleep Token is not metal per se, but I do consider them a prog band if I were to categorize them. But for the sake of discussion, let's talk about Sleep Token through a metal lens because they are part of the metal culture and the rock scene right now. But first point is genre purism. That's not metal because a lot of metalheads are purists. They want their music heavy, aggressive, and somewhat traditional. Sleep Token blends R&B, pop, electronic, gent, and ambient elements into their sound. And for some, that's blasphemy to even consider a band like this metal at all.
They're posers.
It's about the vibe, not virtuosity. Traditional metal often idolizes technical proficiency. Like Dream Theater again, Meshuggah, or even Slayer back in the day. Sleep Token, while musically talented, they lean more towards on mood, atmosphere, and emotional expression. It's a shift from the riff first kind of mentality. Because for some older metalheads, it feels like the genre's identity is almost being watered down or overtaken by aesthetics over skill, which is not accurate because Sleep Token's skills are so good. Two's drumming is impeccable. Another reason why people don't like Sleep Token is the TikTok and hype culture around them, because Sleep Token blew up in big part to platforms like TikTok and YouTube reaction channels, were a piece to that puzzle. But their 2023 album, Take Me Back to Eden, spread like wildfire, especially through those algorithms on TikTok and YouTube. For OG metal fans who find bands through underground shows or showing up for the openers or sharing music with friends, it felt like the band was almost manufactured by the algorithm. Because a common sentiment is that it's not about the music anymore, it's about trends.
You wouldn't understand, Dad. You're not with it. I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
Jealousy and gatekeeping, let's be real, part of it is jealousy. Sleep Token is doing numbers that most bands could only dream of doing. Sold out arena tours, top Spotify playlists, a cult following. Some bands have been grinding for decades and never got this kind of traction before. So the gatekeeping kicks in. You didn't earn your stripes in the underground, so you're not real metal, can be a mentality. Another thing that's off-putting to some is the cult branding and mystery. Sleep Token's anonymity, lore, and religious-like fan base rub some people the wrong way. It's not just a band, it's the whole experience. To some, that borders on cringe or feels like disingenuous, especially if you're not into that theatrical side of metal. It's like Ghost meets Billie Eilish meets Tool or something, but Sleep Token's influences are actually Periphery, Corellia, Animals as Leaders, Veil of Maya, as well as Billie Eilish. But maybe that's why I'm personally drawn to their music, because I like those bands that I mentioned. But the strong online presence of the Sleep Token fandom can sometimes lead to echo chambers where having unpopular opinions or critiques of the band is not widely accepted. This can almost manifest as like aggressive defense of the band's work on social media, where fans might exchange in heated exchanges with critics or with other fan communities. Fantano's review of Take Me Back to Eden, where he gave it a 2, is a perfect example of this. But hell, I'm personally worried for the next Sleep Token drop and I don't like it, which is a thing that could happen. But whether or not I like it or not, I'm going to be honest with my opinions always. But continuing on about Sleep Token's fan base, one of the biggest, if not the biggest reason for people not liking Sleep Token is Sleep Token's toxic fandom. Sleep Token fans are known for being passionate, but a specific subset of the fandom, the horny Sleep Token fans, have taken the passion to levels that have left the rest of the scene raising eyebrows and kind of stabbing their eyes. Let's not sugarcoat it. Vessel has a lot of women and men thirsting over him because, again, the anonymity, the vulnerability in the lyrics, and the live performances, especially the ones where they're like humping the ground and stuff, it turned a big portion of the fandom into a constant stream of unfiltered horny comments and thirst traps on TikTok. And that's not necessarily toxic in itself, but it becomes a problem when it drowns out everything else. Serious musical discussion or lore analysis or get buried under comments about how they want to just bang to the song. It sexualizes everything, and even like vulnerable trauma-focused lyrics get twisted into some form of thirst bait. This leads to this parasocial weirdness too, because the band's non-enemy is a big part of Sleep Token's allure. It creates a mystique that fans project a lot onto. Fans build entire fantasy narratives around them, often hypersexualized. They treat Vessel and the rest of the band like fictional characters rather than real people. And the line gets crossed when the fans speculate on their real identities and create like these post-doxing style threads revealing their birth certificates and way more personal information. So when you're mixing real people with not safe for work content and obsessive behavior, it stops being harmless and starts being invasive, which is obviously the main reason why Vessel wrote the song Caramel. Lastly, a big reason why people don't like Sleep Token is maybe they tried, they listened to them, and they just find the music boring. And that's perfectly fine. Music is subjective. There's not one single artist that is beloved by every single person on the planet. When people find something boring, someone else might find it exciting, and vice versa. So no problem if you find Sleep Token boring.
That's fine. I get that, but you're wrong and I hate you.
So let's move on to the next part of the video, which is trying to understand the psychology behind metalheads and the mainstream. It's kind of a funny paradox because we want our bands to succeed, but not that much. There's a few layered reasons why metal fans often react negatively when a band breaks into the mainstream. One of those is, it was our thing. Metal is often more than just music, it's identity, it's underground, it's raw, it's niche. When a band gets popular, the music suddenly feels less personal, less like this exclusive thing you discovered before everyone else. Translation, I liked them before they were cool. And I'm guilty of saying this stupid shit so many times in my teenage years. Another reason is this mainstream misrepresentation. Metalheads know how often the genre is misunderstood by the public, so when a band gets big, there's fear they'll become the poster child for metal, often in a watered down or misrepresented form. Wait, people think this is what metal sounds like? And this perfectly alludes to Sleep Token, which are technically not metal per se again, but they have metal elements. Therefore, casual music listeners who are discovering Sleep Token will have a wake-up call when they dive deeper into the metal sphere and discover some Archspire or something. Another worry is this loss of edge, because mainstream success often leads to cleaner production, safer lyrics, and broader themes. While that can bring in more fans, it can also strip away the grit and intensity that made the band special in the first place. And a word that's synonymous with metal, but gatekeeping. We all know it, but sometimes we're not self-aware to know it, but metal has a strong gatekeeping culture. Some fans pride themselves in knowing the most obscure band, and they might resent new fans for jumping on the bandwagon without understanding what makes the music obscure in the first place. And I'm guilty of this too, because back in the day, I would go like, oh yeah, you like Slipknot? You ever listen to Sixth? You ever listen to The Human Abstract? You ever listen to Necrophagist? I swear to God, that was me, and I was brutal for that, man. Another reason is the psychology, and it's about ownership. This one is more personal because it's not just about a band blowing up. It's about what the band meant to you, sometimes in certain moments of your life. When a band feels like the secret that you had, watching them suddenly belong to everyone else makes it feel less special. Especially when a band helped the fan through some traumatic life experience, it can be correlated to grief to them, right? And it cuts deeper when new fans don't know the early stuff, the raw emotions, the unpolished pain. The music could have helped them go through some traumatic events. They can perceive the new fans as not experiencing what they went through and now just wearing the merch, posting TikToks, and treating it like some sort of product. You don't hate the band. You hate that once was intimate to you, maybe even sacred, now feels like a trend. It's the same music, but it doesn't feel like yours anymore. So to sum it up, metalheads don't hate success. They mostly just hate what they think success does to the music. It's less about fame and more about authenticity, staying true to the art, even when the spotlight hits.
You've changed, man. It used to be about the music.
I said slag off.
Sleep Token sucks. Or pull up, because it's interesting. Some bands break the mold way too soon. We can look at other bands in the prog, rock, emo scene, for example, Bring Me the Horizon. They started as a brutal deathcore band, but had a scene kid aesthetic and massive online following that generated some hate in their early days. My Chemical Romance was too theatrical for punk, too emo for rock, and too polished for hardcore. Tool, although people understood they were prog, they still didn't really fit in with the culture. Like, they weren't thrash, they weren't grunge or new metal. They had long songs, abstract lyrics, trippy videos, and Maynard being, well, Maynard. But fans have classified them as metal. But Danny Carey says he doesn't even think Tool is a metal band. But maybe that's what makes them special, right? Result, fans don't know where to place them, and people don't like what they can't categorize, so they mock it. Another reason is genre blending is hearsay. A lot of people find it cringe when bands merge genres together. But these bands that I mentioned also experimented with different genres. Bring Me the Horizon mixed electronic, pop, metal, and arena rock. My Chemical Romance dropped a theatrical rock opera in an era of real punk. Tool was more prog, but they made more cerebral, meditative metal in a scene that preferred a lot of aggression. They were ahead of their time, and it's often looked like cringe until the scene catches up. And these bands, they were good, but people didn't want to admit it, because maybe this doesn't apply to Tool as much, who are very technical, especially with their time signatures. But with Bring Me the Horizon and My Chemical Romance, they realized they have musical chops. They've matured lyrically and sonically over the years, and hell, their music even influenced a whole new generation.
When I was a young boy, my father...
Eventually, the scenes that they were in had to face the truth that maybe these guys were always just 2 steps ahead. Now the full circle, the redemption arc, if you will, and looking at them now, Bring the Horizon is headlining massive festivals. My Chemical Romance is iconic for a whole new generation. Tool is considered prog metal royalty. What started as hate eventually transformed into respect. Because the truth is, innovation rarely gets love right away. When something new challenges what people are used to, the first reaction is often rejection. Not because it's bad, but because it's unfamiliar. It doesn't fit the mold. It breaks the rules. It dares to sound different, look different, be different. Innovation is always misunderstood at first. This is what's happening to Sleep Token right now. Because the things we mock today are often the things we end up worshiping.